Wysteria, energy, twister. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and the wonderful world of Fae. We are now on the Dewas. In Buddhist folk beliefs, the Dewas, gods, are nature spirits. They are the guardians of trees. They can inhabit mountains, rice stalks and streams as well as trees. The word Dewas is used interchangeably with Bakat, a kind of jinn. According to the law, each person is born with a Dewas, and each one is different. Some are strong while others are weak. People who are energetic, talented, virile, wealthy and wise are believed to have a powerful Dewas, where people who lack these abilities are said to have a Dik Dewas. Dexamene, a sea nymph in the classical Greek mythology, meaning powerful one. She was one of the Nereid who accompanied Tethys in mourning the loss of her son. Diancecht. In Irish mythology, Diancecht was the healer of the Tuatha De Danann. He had the ability to restore the dead to life so long as the person's head was intact. He could also replace lost limbs with ones made of silver. He was the progenitor of the clan of extremely powerful and highly skilled healers. He and his 3 children had the ability to restore the dead through the use of herbs, incantations, and mythology. Diancecht was jealous of his son, Miach, who was so skilled healer he could replace lost limbs with ones of flesh, that he killed him. Diancecht died of plague. He likely contracted it when struck with a blade weapon covered in plague-carrying poison. And if you remember the story I did a while back, guys, regarding Tamlin, Diancecht was in that very story. If anybody remembers what that story was, write it in the comments below. I'd love to know if you remember. Dievini, Latvian folklore. The Dievini or Dievini was once a minor god, but has since been reduced to the status of household fairy. As a species, they are protective of families and households, and they like to look after them if they live there especially. Dyke. In Greek mythology, Dyke or Dike, Justice, and her 2 sisters. She had peace, lawful, and order as well. The collective known as the Hoi, the correct moment. Guardians of natural law, they were born the daughters of the Titans, goddess of law, Themis, and god Zeus. The nature spirit-like sisters were entrusted with guarding the gate to Olympus. Dike, or Dike, like her sisters, was described as being a beautiful young maiden with beautiful hair, light footsteps, and wearing golden diadems, representing the seasons. Each one held a blooming flower, and ear of corn, and a vine stalk. Dike, or Dike, executed the laws of justice and sentencing. She was the mother of the fairy of tranquility or quiet. Dictania. Originally a Cretan mother goddess, Dictania became a nymph of the island of Delos and was associated with Mount Dicte. The diminutive fairy. Variations are forgetful people, the gentry, good neighbours, hill folk, honest folk, the literary people, little fairy, little folk, people of peace. This species of fairy was created near the end of the 15th century, when the ideas of medieval fairy merged with the heroic fairy. The alert and invisible diminutive fairy became the standard image of what a fairy looked like. Also known as the literary fairy, this species of fairy was introduced by John Lyly in the dramatic play he wrote for the court of Queen Elizabeth, Endymion, in the 16th century. In the play, the fairies brought justice to the villain by severely pinching him. He was being punished for the wrong he did to Endymion, but also for the crime of infringing upon fairy privacy. During this time, fairies were not necessarily welcomed into the home, and speaking their name aloud was believed to be enough to summon one to appear, so a list of euphemistic names were invented to reference them. To know the true name of a fairy would ensure the fairy would depart from your presence, never to return, because knowing the name would give you power to control it. During this time, there was a belief that the human soul was a tiny creature living within the body. At night, the soul had the ability to leave the body and act of its own accord in wild adventures, where the sleepers dream. So basically, what that would mean would be astral traveling, guys. Dindonette. In the fairy tale, the fairies blunder. The fairy, Dindonette, was said to have the kindest heart, but not much in the way of common sense. She claimed Fountain Island, located in the middle of the sea, as being under her special protection. Whenever she would try to help someone, Dindonette would inevitably cause distress and pain. Among her attempts to help, she enchanted a spring so when children drank from it, they would become adults, and when grown men and women drank from it, they would become children. Embarrassed by the damage she did, Dindonette left the island, swearing never to return. It was decided by the Assembly of Fairies, since Dindonette's actions were done with no malicious intent at all, and she would be given the power to restore half of the afflicted people. The Dinshenshas. In Irish law, the Dinshenshas are female dwarfs serving the goddess of cattle and the protector of women in. They use their ability to shapeshift into various forms in order to avenge women who have been harmed or otherwise wronged by men. They are guardians of cattle. There is also a book of Irish mythology that's named the Dishenshus. Dine Mara, or Doini Mara, Du U Inni Mara, and Duni Mara are the variations. Dine Mara was the amiable merman from the Isle of Man. They were said to be far less fierce than the mermen of England and more easygoing, like the Merrow of Ireland. As benign as these mermen may have been, there was a belief if one whistles on board a sail ship, the Dinimara would send more wind than is needed to the ship. The aquatic fairy animal was described as having large, pig-like eyes and a bright red nose from drinking too much brandy salvaged from sunken ships. Their breath smelled like the raw fish that they actually ate, which I suppose is not surprising, really, is it? I mean, they are mermen. They are going to eat fish. Dip. In Catalan mythology, Dip is a hellhound, a hairy, injurious, blood-drinking dog-like creature similar to the black dogs of the British Isles. Like many evil beings in Catalan law, he is lame in one leg. Derich, but also it actually has many other names, even Fachan, Dithrich. Anyway, it's a type of fairy creature being in the islands of Scotland, and this fairy was described as having one eye, one leg, one hand, and one arm, coming directly out of its chest. Its head had random tufts of whirly and wiry hair. Examples of similar creatures are the buccan, Dirk, the nymph of the spring Dirk on Mount Kitharon in Boeotia in central Greece. Dirk was born the daughter of Archelaus. So she's kind of like a nymph, I guess, just like all the others are. Dernwebbe, a nature spirit in German folklore. Dernwebbe was a type of woodwife who dressed all in white and wandered the forest, asking travellers to accompany her. If they refused, she wept and then suddenly vanished. In Bavaria, she was said to wear all red and carry a basket of apples that turned into money for some lucky recipients, but not everyone. Desir. In Norse law, the Desir are female ancestral spirits who watch over their descendants. They usually attach themselves to a man made structure like a house and can be helpful or injurious. They are said to be nocturnal and, when seen, are described as looking like ghostly women. On occasion, a desire would appear to its descendant in animal form, something that would suit the character of the individual and be recognized for what it was. For example, a powerful leader may see a bear or a bull, whereas a crafty individual may see a fox. Even long after the introduction of Christianity, the Desir were worshipped. An assembly of Desir were called Disathi. It was usually celebrated on the full moon in October. Sacrifices for the Desir were left in their temples called Desir Selen. Well, it's interesting indeed. Diwate. It's Philippines, so obviously the pronunciation could be different. To me in English, Dewate, but it might be Dewata, maybe. Encantada is another name also used for them, and Lambana. In Philippine mythology, the Dewata was originally seen and worshipped as gods, but in modern times they are comparable to fairies, nature spirits, or nymphs. Description of their appearance varies, but generally they are said to look human, ageless and beautiful, with a singular distinct characteristic. This can be anything from having perfectly smooth, wrinkle-free skin, even in places like knees and elbows, to not having a philtrum. Devata live in large trees, such as acacia and the balete. They will bless those who benefit and protect the forest and mountains, and will curse those who attempt to exploit or harm them. A male Devata is called an encanto, also spelt encanto or encantado. So it can be spelt many different ways. It can be spelt with an E, and it can be spelt with an I. They live in the sea, and Filipino fishermen will make offerings of meat to them after a successful day. And then we have the jinn. Now the jinn is it has many different names as well, by the way. Islamic mythology, obviously. Many people know they're a race of demons, and they are divided into two species, and they all have different classes as well. And they were created by Allah out of smokeless fire and were given permission to attempt to seduce and tempt men away from God's teachings. They are immortal, and unless slain, they will live indefinitely. When a jinn has been mortally wounded, it bleeds fire. Eventually, the flames will consume the demon. They will also avoid direct sunlight, salt, and steel. These demons fear the falling stars. God can throw at them, and the sound of singing. In general, they are known to be quick-tempered and vain. True. And actually, you can go research and you will find that there are many different variations of jinns out there. Not that they all are called jinn, but the way they act, the places they go and things like that. There's so many stories about them. There really is. Dogakowad, Dogakowad, the spreader. This is the folklore of the Abenaki people, a tribe of Native American Indians who live in the northeast United States. They're a race of nature spirits. So these small fairy beings are quick enough to use a stick and prep open the maw of an attacking animal. Interesting. They make their homes near the side of cliffs or on steep riverbanks and do like when people make camp near them. Dobby. As you know, dobbies are also called masters, and dobby can be spelt in different ways, but they are very similar to brownies in the folklore from England. Playful, prone to pranks, they are very kind to children and servants. They're described as looking shaggy and thin, although they watched over the family and their valuables, especially in times of trouble. The dobby usually stayed in the stable where it could keep better watch over all the animals. Yep. Unattached dobbies are said to be particularly injurious and malicious, living in or near isolated and derelict ruins or water sources. It has been suggested the word dobby is a nickname for the name Robin, and the supernatural dobby may be a reference to good old Robin Goodfellow. Dokalfa. In Norse mythology, Dokalfa is the dark elves, which we've already done, but like I say, they do come up with many different names, so sometimes you say one name and you continue and it comes up again as it's the same being, but it's just giving you the alternative name for it. Dola. In Polish law, the dola are protection spirits attached to a person at birth and remaining with them for the entirety of their life, guiding them. They are the personification of fate. Although they usually appear as a woman or a young maiden working at the spinning wheel with a golden thread, they can also take the form of a cat, god, man, or mouse. The dollar will help its person by caring for his fields, looking after their flocks, and seeing after their welfare in general. So yeah, very helpful indeed, and I do like that. You don't get many that are helpful, do you? Dahlia. In Ukrainian folklore, the dahlia is a house fairy living behind the stove. When it is in a good mood, the little fae, described as looking like an old woman, brings good fortune and luck to the family. However, if it's annoyed or offended, then it would generally be called the Nadalia, and its appearance changes to look like a shabbily dressed hag, and it will bring misfortune to the household. Could go either way with that one, guys. Best be careful. You don't want to make them hungry or anything, because that would not be good, right? That's the next part of the wonderful world of fairies. I hope you enjoyed listening to this part. I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. Please hit that like, share if you can, and also if you've not subscribed, please consider doing so. Many blessings. Wysteria. Energy. Twister.